Hi, we thought we'd share with our friends and family why we find Anasazi backcountry ruins so exciting. We like to deduct from the clues. This is an example site that has a lot of clues. Notice this strange shape of black soot. This indicates years of fires, slow fires, inside a building. There's two gigantic logs here. These are some of the longest logs we have seen at any site. And notice that the length of the logs are a little bit longer than this black fire soot spot. So they had this as one gigantic room without any pillars probably. It most likely was a kiva. We see these logs, and there's also a whole bunch of juniper bark over here to the side. We usually see those at kivas. Kivas are old ceremonial, usually circular sites where they would do a lot of ceremonies. This site is not circular in nature. It's actually more, all of the rock rubble around is more of a half circle. So this is not your typical kiva if it's a kiva, and that's only a half circle. But most of the rooms were either granaries or living rooms, and they were not of this size. That's part of why we think this is kiva. Notice also the rock art that is above the soot line. Kivas usually could be stepped on. They had enough support and bark and dirt on the top that people could walk on top of the kivas. And then they could easily reach this top petroglyph up here when they were standing on top of the roof here. This is a little unusual. We usually see spirals, which are sometimes interpreted as the circle of life, but these are concentric circles with a dot in the center. We just read about a solstice site that measured the sun, measured the solstices, 4 solstices that use concentric circles. So this likely was used for measuring solstices, and it probably could have used the shadow from that little lip of that rock right there. Right now this alcove faces south. It's very typical for Pueblo sites to be. Earlier path makers' house sites were often facing north, but this would be a later Pueblo type site because has more stonework, more work to it. The earlier sites usually don't see much of because they've pretty much deteriorated, they're older, did not use as much stone. So these are all clues that we like to deduct from a site. Here's also some chert. This is a material that they would have used for making stone tools. These don't look so much worked. There's a couple of these look worked, but most of these might have been just for raw materials. There's some pot shards here. We only see one piece of corrugated here. Here's another little grouping of some pot shards here. These all seem to be cooking ware. They're just gray ware, which was for cooking. There's one corrugated piece. It's a little bit hard to see. So that gives, but these pieces are out of context. We don't know if they were picked up here next to this, what we think is a probable kiva. If they were picked up from the side over there, it would indicate that could indicate cooking activities. There's actually several sites off to the side, so there are some pottery associated with kiva jars, and we're not too familiar with that, but these really look more like cooking ware. We still stand by that. We think that this is an old kiva because of how big it is. Anything else to add? That's part of why we find this so exciting, all of these clues. Notice, I'll talk more about the rock art. This is a little spiral here. And there's also, this looks like a little sun. There's some unusual hands here. There's 2 hands here, and they're very different. We don't know why. This hand has 6 fingers, 5 fingers, and a thumb. Don't know why. And there's a really nice line of sheep, mountain sheep. They're in the row here. That's all part of what we find very exciting about why we think it's worth hiking. It took us about 3.5 miles of hiking to get here, but it's worth it because of what we get to see at the end of it. We find it's a little detective game.